Today we're going to be starting chapter 6, which is quadrilaterals. We're going to take a break from triangles, which we've been working on for the last 2.5, 3 months now, and we're going to go over to quadrilaterals. Alright, there are various types of quadrilaterals that we will be talking about in this chapter. And today what we're going to be talking about is how to actually classify all these quadrilaterals. First off, what's a quadrilateral? Well, a quadrilateral is a four-sided figure. That's where the prefix quad comes into play. That tells us it's a four-sided figure. Okay. From here, we have some different shapes that come out of quadrilaterals. We have parallelograms, which then from parallelograms we get rectangles and rhombuses, and from those two things we get squares. We also can get we can get a kite from a quadrilateral, its own little entity. Then we can get trapezoids from a quadrilateral, and from trapezoid we can actually get an isosceles triangle, which is um, what you normally see when a trapezoid is um, symbolized as you were growing up. You were actually looking at an isosceles trapezoid, not just a trapezoid. Okay. All right. So from here, we have some different properties of parallelograms. Starting out on the first one. Some different properties are, we have the opposite sides are congruent. Okay, so like QR and PS are congruent. Consecutive angles are supplementary, so like angle R and angle S are going to create 180 degrees. Opposite angles are congruent, so like angle R and angle P would be congruent. And the diagonals bisect each other. All right, they cut each other in half, okay? So if RT was 5, then TP would also have to be 5. Okay, from here we have those special parallelograms. We have rhombuses, rectangles, and squares. And each one of these has their own separate classifications. The rhombus is a four-sided and congruent. The diagonals are also perpendicular, so they create 90-degree angles. A rectangle. A rectangle has four right angles, and the diagonals are congruent. All right. A square, four sides are congruent, just like a rhombus. Four right angles, just like a rectangle. The diagonals are perpendicular, just like a rhombus, and the diagonals are congruent, just like a rectangle. Okay, that's why a square derives from both a rhombus and a rectangle. All right. Okay, so all right, so from here what we're going to do is we're going to actually classify each one correctly. So I'm just going to do a few of these. So right away we know that we have some different quadrilaterals down here that don't quite fit into a parallelogram, rhombus, square, or rectangle. So we're just going to eliminate those right away. That one, that one, that one, that one, that one. Okay. From here, we can look at these and we can say, well, this has four sides that are congruent and four right angles. That means it's going to be a square. This one, we see it has four right angles and the opposite sides are congruent. That would be a rectangle. Now here we have all four sides are congruent and they're parallel. So we are going to say that's a rhombus. And this last one, while these two sides, all four sides are parallel, we have two sets of parallel lines, that's considered just a parallelogram. Okay? All right. From here, we have kites. Kites. Properties of a kite. Um, A quadrilateral with two pairs of adjacent sides are congruent, no opposite sides congruent. So that means that this guy and this guy are congruent to each other, and this guy are congruent to each other. Okay? And their diagonals are perpendicular. Okay? All right, the last type of quadrilateral we'll be talking about today is the trapezoid. The trapezoid. The properties of a trapezoid: a quadrilateral with exactly one pair of parallel sides. All right, the parallel sides are called bases. The non-parallel sides are called legs. So that's a leg, that's a leg, that's a base, and that's a base. Okay, the bases and one of the legs form the base angles. Okay, easy enough. If the legs are congruent, if we've got a congruent one and a congruent one, then it is an isosceles trapezoid. If the diagonal of an isosceles trapezoid are congruent, okay, that's what that says, and both pairs of base angles of an isosceles trapezoid are congruent. Alrighty, easy enough. That's all I have for you today, just classifying some quadrilaterals. Tomorrow we're going to be working on some fun stuff, talking about how to um, classify all these so you get them down really easily. All right.